Are you thinking about buying a home in northern Michigan? For the past 5 years, I've been helping folks do just this. I've helped folks that are local, and I've helped folks that are not from Michigan as well. And there are definitely certain things that are different about the home buying process here in northern Michigan. It can change a lot, like what is affordable for you? Who pays what during the transaction? What are the contacts that I need to know in order to get my dream home? There are just a lot of things that could threaten your ability to get into your dream home here in northern Michigan. So in this video, I'm going to talk about exactly what you need to do if you're trying to buy a home here in northern Michigan. I hope you enjoy. Hey, I'm TJ Shimmick, a Michigan real estate agent, and this channel is all about helping you with your move here to northern Michigan. Subscribe for more information, and if you're thinking about moving to northern Michigan, you gotta give me a call. Without further ado, let's jump into the steps about buying a home here in northern Michigan. Step 1, you gotta find a local northern Michigan realtor. And I know I just said I'm a realtor, but I'm gonna go through all the steps and keep this pretty unbiased. Because I know I'm just one person and I might not be a fit for you. If I were you, I'd start my search on Google and Zillow. Find a bunch of real estate agents that you feel like you can trust. Check out their websites, their social media profiles, their reviews on all the different websites. And if you can, actually check how many transactions they actually do in a given year. You don't want to work with a realtor that's never done a deal. But there are a lot of ways that you can get taken advantage of or screwed by a bad realtor. But the one I really want to focus on is make sure you're dealing with a local realtor that understands the area that you're focused on. Especially here in northern Michigan, there are a few quirks that I want to go over that you and your realtor need to be aware of. First off, you got to understand the property that you're looking at. There are a lot of easements here in northern Michigan. And easements, it's sort of a foreign term to a lot of people, but there's land that's been split up over time, and there's roads cutting through land to reach other parcels. So you need to know that if you're looking at a house or a vacant piece of land, are there going to be people driving their cars directly through your property in order to access other properties? This is a very common theme here in northern Michigan, so just be on the lookout for that and make sure you're comfortable with any easements that are in place. The next thing you need to know is access to internet. You're watching this YouTube video, so obviously internet is important to you. Since it's 2025, you would think the internet is everywhere, but it is, but in our areas, it's dependent on the connectivity and what kind of service is available the further out of town that you get. For example, in one zip code, you might have access to the highest quality fiber that's out there, and a few miles away, you might have access to nothing that's currently available internet-wise. So make sure, do your research, make sure you're with a realtor that knows the area like the back of their hand so that they can do the research for you. Another thing that's unique here in Michigan and northern Michigan is homestead versus non-homestead property taxes. So as an average, you're gonna pay about 0.7 to 0.9% of your property's value each year in property taxes. And now don't hold me to that. It totally depends on what property you're talking about. So keep in mind your homestead property where you spend 6 months a year and a day is you're going to pay 40% less on your property taxes here in northern Michigan. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about the math that you need to keep in mind to budget for maybe that first home or second home. A couple of things that come up a lot here in northern Michigan are perk testing and radon testing. Perk tests are not unique to only Michigan, but in northern Michigan, a lot of people come from areas where they have a community or municipal water or septic system. Here, a lot of our lots, you have to put in your own private well and septic. So you want to get a perk test from the health department to make sure that your lot is capable to have a traditional septic system so that you can actually build a house. Radon testing is done because radon is in the earth everywhere that people are. But they want to monitor that amount of radon because it is a cancer-causing gas. So they set up radon tests for 48 hours in different homes and properties and just make sure that that radon, that level that it's reading is at a really, really safe level for people moving in. All of these things are things that a northern Michigan realtor should be able to talk through with you. So do your research, but also make sure to connect with an awesome local real estate agent. The second most important thing is to find a local lender. So a lot of people think, yeah, local real estate agent makes sense, but local lender? Why? What does it matter where I get my mortgage from? But I'll tell you this alone has saved more deals than I can count. And the only deals that I've lost were not with local lenders. The reason that a local lender is so important is because they can move so much quicker than those bigger nationwide companies that deal with a lot more other things than just buying homes. Think of it this way. Bank of America, they might be helping you with a mortgage, but now they're trying to sell you a credit card, set up a checking account, a savings account, and maybe even sell you even life insurance. They just have their hands in so many different buckets, but the mortgage part of it, that's the most important part when buying a house. Local lenders focus on just that mortgage part. Their job is to to help you, and that's why they can move quick no matter the time of day and no matter what the day of the week. There are also other advantages to using local lenders because sometimes you run into appraisal issues. Appraisal issues pop up because it pertains to the particular value of that property compared to what you offered to buy it for, and that can raise some concerns sometimes. So if the appraisal comes in and it's under what you have the house under contract for, they might not be able to write that deal for you anymore. A strong local lender understands the market, and they'll look at that appraisal and then they'll understand if should they challenge it? There's other properties out there that support the value, or they'll shoot you straight and say, yeah, the purchase price is just not going to be supported by the appraisal. These are the little things that can make or break a deal and why you want nobody other than a local lender by your side. Again, the only deals that I've had totally fall apart was because a local lender was not involved. And then what? I had to go find a local lender to bring that deal back to life. Just like finding a local realtor, go online, find that local lender, talk to a few of them, feel them out, and see what works for you. And if you need a few resources or a few referrals, I have plenty here in Northern Michigan, and I am not tied to them financially at all. So now you have a local realtor, you have a local lender. Now let's jump into your personal budget. Understand the cost of living here in Northern Michigan, and then understand, your personal budget, your liquidity. What can you afford comfortably to live here in Northern Michigan? Depending on what the home value is worth here in Northern Michigan, and then what your budget is for a home here in Northern Michigan, you need to understand where's that hard line where you can live comfortably, but also have the home that you want in Northern Michigan. At that point, you're ready for step number 4, which is getting set up with a local search. Now, you probably noticed I already said local about 100 times in this video, but Northern Michigan is just not your typical market. So you can go on Zillow and realtor.com to set up a local search, but there are some major issues with this. So here in Northern Michigan, sometimes when a listing is put into the multiple listing system, that data takes a while to make it onto Zillow or realtor.com, or that data flows totally inaccurately to their platforms. Zillow and realtor.com are also chock full of misleading information. For example, floodplain warnings. So they will put blanket floodplains on homes that are near bodies of water. But in my 5 years of real estate here in Northern Michigan, I have never had a transaction that lives in a floodplain or needed flood insurance. So really, the general recommendation here is get set up in the local MLS with a local realtor. So when you go to your realtor, tell them you want to get on a local search. And when you get on this, there are so many benefits. For example, you're not going to have those issues with getting delayed information like you do on Zillow and realtor.com. For example, properties here in Northern Michigan have tons of details that just can't be overlooked. So it's really, really important to substantiate what's happening with documentation. You're not going to get those documents on Zillow. On the MLS, for example, all those listings you receive are going to have seller's disclosures, surveys, maybe septic disclosure, list of home improvements, really specific information to that home or property that you need to know. Furthermore, you and your realtor are going to be on the same page when properties are being sent your way that check those boxes. So instead of awkwardly sending over Zillow links, you will be able to actually be on the same page a lot quicker by just shooting over the address that just hit the MLS. And then your realtor can take a deep dive and get all that information that you really need. And again, the real value of having that local realtor is going to be interpreting the information for you. Now that you're on a local search, you are ready to start looking at homes. You got your pre-approval in place from your local lender, and you're seeing properties that you actually might be interested in buying. You can set up real showings now with your local real estate agent. And if you're not in town, virtual tours are always an option. For example, just last week, I had a couple out of North Carolina. They wanted to buy a house for $1.6 million over in Leelanau County. And boom, got on the phone, did a virtual tour. They are buying that house sight unseen. You have to do those virtual tours in the markets when the right property pops up, because there's going to be multiple offers or somebody else is going to jump on it quicker. So local lender, local realtor, virtual tour, and boom, you're under contract. Now, if you can come to the home yourself, obviously that's the best way so that you've actually seen it and you feel comfortable with the purchase. I don't recommend buying sight unseen. So now that you found that home that you're interested in buying, step 6, let's make an offer. Now, there are a lot of things to get ready to make a great offer. So you think you might be ready to make that offer, but it's really what comes next that makes the difference. The first, make sure your realtor is a great negotiator. And here's why I say that. You may have done all the research and you're ready to make that offer on the perfect home of your dreams. And you might think there's no way things can go south from here, but that tends to be the exact moment when things like to go south. So when the seller says, oh, there's no way I'm going to take that number, What are you going to do? You may think to yourself, well, I just need to increase my price. But in reality, there are so many variables at play that you need to have that realtor totally understand what is the seller really looking for. Realtors that do a lot of transactions should have a really deep understanding about this. The thing that frustrates me the most is real estate agents that just cannot negotiate. We get paid commission based on the sales price because our job is to get the best deal for our clients. But some realtors are getting paid that same amount just to open doors. And sometimes it just makes us realtors look really bad because there are realtors out there that should not be making the money they're making. So be sure to discern, because honestly, this falls back on you as a consumer because you haven't done your due diligence and found that local realtor that is a good negotiator. The other thing to know when negotiating an offer are the financial pieces of the offer when you're making a purchase. The earnest money, the deposit, escalation clauses, the other clauses in the agreement, the appraisal. Are you putting gap coverage in there? When is the inspection? Do you have an inspector lined up already so you can minimize that window? And then here specifically in Michigan, the sellers pay for the title insurance and the transfer taxes. So that big chunk of money is already on the sellers. And buyers themselves, the chance that you as a buyer have to cover your buyer side commission as a buyer in this market is almost nil. Make sure people are following the new state laws that have gone into place and that they're not making you feel like you're on the hook for commission. I personally have had no buyers pay the commission in any transactions this year that have gone through our multiple listing system. So if you're thinking about moving to the Northern Michigan area, please give me a call. I would love to add value wherever you have questions. Like I said before, I don't want to sway who you're going to pick as a realtor here in Northern Michigan, but just look at the numbers. I do a lot of business here in Northern Michigan, and I would love to at least have that opportunity to be in the discussion with you. I talk to so many people that are talking to other realtors, and they don't have a clue what they should be considering for their home purchase. I've lived here my whole life and I have sold homes exclusively here in the Northern Michigan area. I know this area like the back of my hand, and honestly, it's been a joy to help clients and even non-clients here talk about real estate here in Northern Michigan. So if you think there's value in having a conversation, then I would love to chat with you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe or leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.